Genesis chapter 31. And he heard the words of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's has he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And Yahweh said to Jacob, Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the Elohim of my father has been with me. And you know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father has deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. But Yahweh suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, the speckled shall be your wages, then all the cattle bore speckled. And if he said thus and so, the ring-straked shall be your hire, then bore all the cattle ring-straked. Thus Yahweh has taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. And the messenger of Yahweh spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now your eyes and see. All the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled, for I have seen all that Laban does to you. I am the El of Bethel, where you anointed the pillar, and where you vowed a vow to me. Now arise, get you out of this land, and return to the land of your kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he has sold us, and has quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which Yahweh has taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever Yahweh has said to you, do. Then Jacob rose up, and set his sons and his wives upon camels. And he carried away all his cattle, and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Paddan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the 3rd day that Jacob was fled. And he took his brethren with him, and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And Yahweh came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and said to him, Take heed that you speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What have you done, that you have stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Wherefore did you flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and did not tell me, that I might have sent you away with mirth, and with songs, and with tabret and harp, and has not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? You have now done foolishly in doing so. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt, but the Elohim of your father spoke to me yesternight, saying, Take you heed that you speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though you would needs be gone, because you sore longed after your father's house, yet wherefore have you stolen my Elohim? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Perhaps you would take by force your daughters from me. With whomsoever you find your Elohim, let him not live. Before our brethren discern you what is yours with me, and take it for yourself. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and to Leah's tent, and to the 2 maidservants' tents, but he did not find them. And then he went out of Leah's tent, and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images, and put them in the camel's furniture, and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but he did not find them. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my master, that I cannot rise up before you, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. And Jacob was angry, and contended with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin, that you have so hotly pursued after me? Whereas you have searched all my stuff, what have you found of all my household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and your brethren, that they may judge between us both. This 20 years have I been with you. Your ewes and your she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of your flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto you. I bore the loss of it. Of my hand did you require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your cattle, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Except the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely you had sent me away now empty. Yahweh has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you yesternight. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that you see is mine. What can I do this day unto these my daughters, or to their children which they have borne? Now therefore, come you, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be for a witness between me and you. And Jacob took a stone, and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said to his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones, and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar-Shahadutha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and you this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed. And Mizpah, for he said, Yahweh, watch between you and I, when we are absent one from another. If you shall afflict my daughters, or if you shall take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, Yahweh is witness between me and you. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast between me and you. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and that you shall not pass over this heap and this pillar to me for harm. The Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Nahor, and the Elohim of their father, judge between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread, and stayed all night in the mount. And early in the morning Laban rose up, and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed, and returned to his place. End of chapter. Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the messengers of Elohim met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, This is Elohim's host. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, to the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob says thus, I have journeyed with Laban, and stayed there till now, and I have oxen, and asses, and flocks, and manservants, and womenservants, and I have sent to tell my master that I might find grace in your sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to your brother Esau, and also he comes to meet you, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him, and the flocks, and herds, and camels, into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O Elohim of my father Abraham, and Elohim of my father Isaac, Yahweh, which said to me, Return to your country and to your kindred, and I will deal well with you, I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you have showed to your servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become 2 bands. Deliver me, I ask of you, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And you said, I will surely do you good, and make your seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother, 200 she-goats, and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants. Every drove by themselves, and said to his servants, Pass over before me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, When Esau my brother meets you, and asks you, saying, Whose are you, and where do you go, and whose are these before you? Then you shall say, They are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my master Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the drove, saying, On this manner shall you speak to Esau when you find him. And say you moreover, Behold, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me, and afterward I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night, and took his 2 wives, and his 2 women servants, and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them, and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. And Jacob was left alone. And there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh. And the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. And he said, I will not let you go, except you bless me. And he said to him, What is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Your name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince have you power with Yahweh and with men, and have prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, Tell me, I ask you, your name. And he said, Why is it that you ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. For I have seen Yahweh face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he limped upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh to this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh and the sinew that shrank. End of chapter. Genesis chapter 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children to Leah and to Rachel and to the 2 handmaids, and he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw the women and the children, and said, Who are those with you? And he said, The children which Yahweh has graciously given your servant. Then the handmaidens came near, and they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near, and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near, and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What do you mean by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my master. And Esau said, I've enough, my brother. Keep that you have unto yourself. And Jacob said, No, I ask you, if now I've found grace in your sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I've seen your face, as though I had seen the face of Yahweh, and you were pleased with me. Take, I ask you, my blessing that is brought to you, because Yahweh has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go on before you. And he said to him, My master knows that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me, and if men should overdrive them one day, all the flock will die. Let my master, I ask you, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goes before me, and the children be able to endure, until I come to my master to Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with you some of the folks that are with me. And he said, What need is there of it? Let me find grace in the sight of my master. And so Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and built him a house, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Paddan Aram, and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field, where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar, and called it El Elohe Israel. End of chapter. Genesis chapter 34. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bore to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her, and lay with her, and defiled her. And his soul clung to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel, and spoke kindly to the damsel's heart. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor the father of Shechem went out to Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard, and the men were grieved, and they were very angry, because he had wrought folly in Israel, in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. I pray you give him to wife, and make him marriages with us, and give your daughters to us, and take our daughters to you, and you shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade you in it, and get your possession in it. And Shechem said to her father and to her brethren, Let me find grace in your eyes, and what you shall say to me I will give. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according to you as you say to me, but give me the damsel for a wife. And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully, and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister, and they said to them, We cannot do this thing, to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that is a reproach to us. But in this we will consent to you, if you will be as we are, that every male of you become circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. But if you will not listen to us, to be circumcised, then will we take our daughter, and we will be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son, and the young man deferred not to do the thing, because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of their city, and communed with the men of their city, saying, These men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land, and trade in it. For the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only in this will the men consent to us, to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us be. And to Hamor and Shechem his son listened all that went out of the gate of his city. And every male was circumcised, all that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass, on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword, and came upon the city boldly, and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house, and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep, and their oxen, and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives did they take captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, You've troubled me to make me to stink amongst the inhabitants of this land, amongst the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me, and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? End of chapter. Genesis chapter 35. And Yahweh said to Jacob, Arise, go to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar to El, that appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. And then Jacob said to his household and to all that were with him, Put away the strange Elohim that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments, and let us arise and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar to Elohim, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave to Jacob all the strange Elohim which were in their hand, and all their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was near Shechem. And they journeyed. And the terror of Yahweh was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. And so Jacob came to Luz, which is in the land of Canaan, that is, Bethel, he and all the people that were with him. And he built there an altar, and called the place El Bethel, because there Elohim appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother. But Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried beneath Bethel under an oak, and the name of it was called Allon Bachuth. And Yahweh appeared to Jacob again when he came out of Paddan Aram, and blessed him. And Yahweh said to him, Your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. And he called his name Israel. And Yahweh said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of you, and kings shall come out of your loins. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, to you will I give it, and to your seed after you will I give the land. And Yahweh went up from him in the place where he talked with him. And Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, a pillar of stone. And he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where Yahweh spoke with him, Bethel. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said to her, Fear not, you shall have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. And Rachel died and was buried in the way to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave, that is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. And Israel journeyed, and spread his tent beyond the tower of Edar. And it came to pass, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah his father's concubine, and Israel heard. And now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. And the sons of Bilhah, Rachel's handmaid, Dan, and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, Gad, and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob, which were born to him in Paddan Aram. And Jacob came to Isaac his father unto Mamre, unto the city of Arba, which is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac journeyed. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. And Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days.